What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here for another fantasy football video. In this video, I'll be ranking every single tight end for your fantasy football season in 2018. This is my draft board for the tight end position going into fantasy drafts this year. There's a link in the description. You can check out my very own draft board, my rankings, where I'm drafting every player in each round. You can go download that, print it off, take it to your draft, or whatever you have to do, whether it's online or not. You can have it in front of you so you can look back and forth and see where I have my players ranked compared to where other people have their players ranked. So go download that, check it out, print it out if you need to, go study it up. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking the tight ends. And for me, the tight end position is very much like the quarterback position. The quarterback position is another position that in most leagues, you only start one quarterback. Very much so is the same for the tight end position. The tight end position, you usually only start one tight end. Now, there's other leagues out there that do start two quarterbacks. There are other leagues out there that do start two tight ends in a rare case, and maybe you would use a tight end as a flex occasionally, but it's very, very rare. That being said, the quarterback and tight end positions, just like I talked about in the quarterback video, the tight end position is a position that I usually wait on till later in the drafts to pick. Now, the tight end position is slightly different for me than the quarterback position. Some people may think it's a little bit similar, but to me, the tight end position is different. And the reason why the tight end position is a tad bit different than the quarterback position is because there are players at tight end that significantly outproduce the rest of the tight ends across the league. When you're talking about the elite tight ends in the NFL and in fantasy football, whether it be Rob Gronkowski, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, these guys outproduce the rest of the field by a significant margin. A significant margin, so much so that it makes it worthy of picking these players earlier than you would pick a top-tier quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. So that's where we're going to start off. We're going to start off with the elite of the elite at the tight end position, and that is Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski has been a four-time number one tight end in his NFL career, widely considered the most talented and arguably the greatest tight end to ever play the position. Gronk is a fantasy beast. Every single time he suits up, he has the ability to win you a week for your fantasy team. And the biggest reason I love Gronk this season is because of where he's going in drafts. He's going in the end of the second round, 211 to be exact. So if you're in a 12-team league, he's going at the back of the second round. If you're in a 10-team league, he's going in the early third round. That being said, Rob Gronkowski, usually after a full season of health and a season where he produces very well for fantasy purposes, he usually goes in the first round, early second round. So that means right now he's going way later than usually where he ends up after a strong season. It's usually only when Gronk has one of those injured years where his stock lowers. But this year, his stock is lowered, plus he was healthy, and he's healthy again. So that being said, Gronk is healthy. And then you add on to the fact that Brandon Cooks is gone. Danny Amendola is gone. So Tom Brady really only has a couple of weapons on his offense that he has rapport with and that he can truly trust, especially early in the season. Julian Edelman is suspended for the first 4 games. That means Gronk is going to be even more crucial to this offense and to their game plan. And this offense flows through Gronk when he's on the field. So Gronk, I love this year. I've picked him a lot in the third round when he falls to that round. Even occasionally in the late second, I've picked up Gronk just based off how I feel the draft is going or who I have on my team. So in the late second round, on that second round turn, early third round, I would consider picking Rob Gronkowski because of all the factors I just mentioned. Now, we go to the second tier of tight ends, which is in round number 4 on my draft board. The reason why I have Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce in round number 4 is because they're the guys that are closest to giving you Gronk-like production. Now, I do have Zach Ertz slightly ahead of Travis Kelce in my rankings at number 2, while I have Travis Kelce at number 3. Now, Zach Ertz, every season he's played in the NFL, he's actually improved from a fantasy standpoint. He finished 13th 4 years ago, 9th 3 years ago, 6th 2 years ago, and 3rd last season. Every single year he's getting better. You add on to the fact that he's getting Carson Wentz back, he should be healthy. The offense is one of the elite ones in the NFL. And the biggest reason is the Eagles are going to be an offensive powerhouse that runs through Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is the number 1 target in this offense. Yes, they have Alshon Jeffrey. Yes, they have Nelson Aguilar. But Zach Ertz is their 3rd down go-to guy. He's their red zone guy. And he's their best overall playmaker, in my opinion. So Zach Ertz is the guy that's going to get the most looks in big-time situations for the Philadelphia Super Bowl champion Eagles, and that's why I have him at number 2. He's a very safe pick, healthy almost all the time, and you know he's going to make plays, and he's on a very, very good team with rapport with his quarterback. That's all you ask out of a tight end. Now, the other guy I have in round number 4 is Travis Kelce. Now, usually people have Kelce ranked higher than Ertz, but for me, the reason why I don't have Kelce ranked higher than Ertz is because Ertz, to me, has more stability, and I know what I'm going to get from Zach Ertz and his offense and his quarterback. Now, from Kansas City, I don't know what their offense is going to look like without Matt Nagy calling the plays and scheming the offense, and Andy Reid taking more of a hold of the offense once again in Kansas City, while they have a new quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, a second-year guy, as opposed to Alex Smith, who was the starting quarterback. So Alex Smith loved Travis Kelce. He would often target him, and Travis Kelce was the number 1 go-to guy in this offense. But now that Alex Smith has gone into Washington, we have Mr. Patrick Mahomes coming into the fold, and I just don't know if Mahomes' favorite target's going to be Kelce, if it's going to be Hill, if it's going to be Watkins, or it's going to be Hunt. So that being said, I don't know where Mahomes is going to focus his attention, and when there's a big play, I don't know where he's going to go with the football. When I know that Carson Wentz or Nick Foles are going to look for Zach Ertz. That's the only difference. I think Kelce is a slightly better tight end in terms of talent than Zach Ertz, but that being said, I just know more about Zach Ertz and his situation than I can trust with Travis Kelce's. Although Travis Kelce, the last 2 years, number 2 and number 1 in fantasy at the tight end position. Now, going to round number 6, 4 and 5. I have Greg Olsen at my number 4. Greg Olsen with the Panthers, every year he's been healthy, has finished in the top 7. 6th, 7th, 4th, 5th, 3rd. That's Greg Olsen, and that's Mr. Consistent. And with Greg Olsen, just like the other guys I mentioned, especially Ertz and Gronk, Greg Olsen still remains, to me, the number 1 target in Carolina's offense. Now, they no longer have Shula calling the plays in Carolina. It's going to be Norv Turner. So it's going to be a slightly different offense. But Norv Turner did have Antonio Gates for a lot of years in San Diego when they were in San Diego with the Chargers. And Greg Olsen, I think he's going to use very similar ways. 2 very good athletes when they're both great. And I think that Greg Olsen still has it. I think the question with Greg Olsen this year for fantasy players is Greg Olsen getting up there in age? Is he getting too old? Is he slowing down? And to me, Greg Olsen is not slowing down because I watched him play in the playoffs and he ripped up the Saints last year. And the Saints were a pretty underrated defense last season. And I think that Greg Olsen, he showed that he still has it. Even though he was injured and banged up in that game in the playoffs, he went off. I mean, he had 10 plus catches and he had over 100 yards. And even in the games where he came back towards the end of that season, he really had good outings with Cam Newton still throwing him that ball as his number 1 go-to guy. And I think he's going to remain that. He may take a little bit of a step back in terms of receptions, but I feel like Greg Olsen is just a very reliable tight end that when you can grab him in the 6th round, you know what you're getting. He really has only ever had 1 injured season, which was last year. I think he'll bounce back from that and have another very good season as an arguably Hall of Fame tight end. At number 5, Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram, opposite to Greg Olsen, is not an old man tight end, but he's a young man tight end. And to me, rookie/young tight ends are very hard to figure out unless your name's Gronk. And for Evan Ingram, he was 5th last season. A lot of that had to do with OBJ and Sterling Shepard both being injured and Eli having only really Evan Ingram to throw the ball to. But I think Evan Ingram as a football player grew a lot in that year and as the season went on. And I think we saw that Ingram has the capability as a great receiving tight end. And I think Eli took notice. I think Pat Shurmur's going to take notice. Of course, Shurmur, coming from the Vikings, did well with Kyle Rudolph. Now, Ingram is a totally different type of player, but I'm very intrigued to see what Shurmur can do with the athleticism of Ingram and put him into different positions to get him good matchups. I also think that he's going to get a lot of good matchups because OBJ needs to be double teamed and Sterling Shepard always needs to have that number 1 slot corner on you. So that being said, Ingram's going to be matched up with a lot of safeties, a lot of linebackers, and I think that is going to be really good for Eli. And I think Ingram's probably going to have a lot of receptions in certain games and really go off in certain games where he has those matchups. But in some other games, he may be a tad inconsistent if OBJ is going off or Sterling Shepard is or Saquon is. So that's the real thing you have to be aware of with Ingram is sometimes he'll be a little bit inconsistent in my opinion this year, but at other times he's going to put up huge numbers that are going to really help you. So that's my opinion on the young man Ingram in New York in round number 6. Then round number 7, 6 overall, I have Delanie Walker, Tennessee Titans. And Walker, very much like Greg Olsen, very inconsistent, just not to the elite level of Greg Olsen, and getting a little bit older. Now, 11th, 8th, 4th, 5th, 6th. Last 3 years, he's finished in the top 6. I have him ranked 6th here. He's getting a little bit older. He doesn't quite have the long speed or the breakaway speed that was really rare for Delanie Walker at the tight end position in his early days in Tennessee and in San Francisco, but I feel like Walker's still a very good tight end. And the other thing I love about Walker is that he is still the number 1 target in Tennessee. Corey Davis is there. They did draft him with a purpose, and they did draft him to become the number 1 target in this offense. But until we really see him take that and really make it his own and stay healthy, I think Walker is the guy until further notice. And if he isn't, he's at least the number 2 guy. And I really like that they brought in a new offensive mind here this season from the Rams. And I really like that in LaFleur, he's going to have a better offensive system to work with. And I think Mariota is really going to benefit from that. So that being said, I think all his targets are going to benefit from LaFleur being there as the offensive coordinator. At number 7, Kyle Rudolph. He was 7th last year, 2nd the year before. Kyle Rudolph, he has a lot of other targets to deal with, if it's Diggs, if it's Thielen, if it's Cook. But always, Rudolph produces, especially in standard leagues. If you need a guy that's going to catch some touchdowns, Rudolph is your guy. He's going to have some games just like Evan Ingram, where he's going to have really big ones. Other games, he's not necessarily going to have a huge game, but he's always going to be consistent enough to put up points and consistent points for you week in and week out. And I think he's going to be another guy like Ingram that benefits from a lot of good matchups because the other receivers around him are taking away those good players. So I like Kyle Rudolph this year, and I think he's another good pick. Plus, Kirk Cousins really loves tight ends, and that's a positive. In round number 8, Trey Burton. Now, Trey Burton might be a shock to a lot of people, casual NFL fans, casual fantasy players, in the 8th round at number 8 for me. But it's not really a shock to me because when you think about it, Trey Burton was really, really good when he filled in for Ertz last season. And he was just really awesome. You saw his talent. You saw his agility, his speed, his athleticism, his ability as a tight end. And you throw that and combine that together with Matt Nagy, who was the coach of Travis Kelce in Kansas City for recent years. Trey Burton is very similar to Travis Kelce. I think you're going to see a lot of screen passes to Trey Burton. A lot of just plays set up and designed to get him in space because he's so athletic and such a gifted athlete. Then you're also going to see Mitch Trubisky, who's a young rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, who's going to be looking for the tight end because that's the safety blanket, that's the short yardage guy, that's the close to the line of scrimmage. So Trey Burton's going to get a lot of catches after the catch, a lot of yards after the catch. He's going to get a lot of catches, and I think he might be a guy that when Allen Robinson is getting doubled or Allen Robinson is not really getting open, I think Trey Burton's going to be that guy that really benefits. So Burton, I think, is going to be the number 2 target in Chicago, and I'd look out for him in your drafts. 8th round, I'd snag him up. Number 9, Jimmy Graham. Now, Jimmy Graham is a player on this list, as you can see, that I'm never going to be drafting in fantasy this year because I have him ranked in the 8th round. He is going in the late 5th. So Jimmy Graham's not going to be on my team. 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 18th, 4th, and 4th are his rankings. Now, that's from past to now. I think Jimmy Graham is slowly slowing down. And I could see Jimmy Graham taking a significant step back this year in terms of his production as a player because I think his athleticism, I think his speed, I think everything about him is slowing down. And when I saw him in Seattle, he dropped a lot of passes. He doesn't really get open for himself. He really relies on jump balls. He relies on red zone targets, and he relies on a very accurate quarterback to get him the football. Now, Aaron Rodgers is that quarterback. The Packers are that offense. But the Packers, as a team, don't really love the tight end position. Yes, there's the argument that he could take over some of the Jordy Nelson red zone targets, which I could see. And in a standard league, he'd definitely rank higher. But I don't see Jimmy Graham being ultra effective between 20 and 20, from the opposing team's 20 and their 20. I just don't see it. He doesn't get enough separation anymore. He is not a great tight end, in my opinion, anymore. It's just my opinion, man. And number 10, Jordan Reed. Now, Jordan Reed is a player that could be higher on this list depending on health. When Jordan Reed is healthy, he's an elite tight end in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Finished 2nd in 14 games a couple of years ago, 9th in 12 games a couple years after that. So Jordan Reed, very, very good. You have Alex Smith there, who loves tight ends, had Travis Kelce, very similar type of players. He is the number 1 target in that offense. Yes, you have Jamison Crowder, but Doxson's not really proven. Richardson is new. I think Alex Smith is going to take a liking to Jordan Reed, and I think that's going to be the connection this year for Washington. Jay Gruden knows how to use him, and as long as Reed's on the field, which it appears that he's going to be, Reed's going to be a steal for you if you can get him in the 8th or 9th round. Round number 9, we start off with Tyler Eifert, another player just like Jordan Reed. If he's healthy, he's on the field, he's the number 2 target for the Bengals. Behind A.J. Green, they struggle to get other guys open, and other guys struggle to make plays. Tyler Eifert is supposed to be that second guy. He's just always been banged up and injured. And he finished 6th place in 13th games 2 seasons ago. I think he can do that again. Yes, he's been banged up a lot. Yes, he may have lost a step in terms of his speed and athleticism, but he's still an amazing red zone target. And for a guy that's very much like Jimmy Graham, you're getting him way later in drafts. So for Tyler Eifert, if he's healthy and you read the reports and he seems to be good to go, watch the preseason maybe a little if he's playing. Tyler Eifert could be a steal for you later in drafts because people are just scared to pick him because he's always injured. At number 12, Jack Doyle. Finished 8th last year, 13th the year before, 13th when he had Dwayne Allen backing him up and taking targets away from him. This year, he has Eric Ebron doing the very same. I'm not a huge Eric Ebron guy. I think Doyle is much, much better of a player, and I think Andrew Luck really likes him. Plus, he finished 8th last year with Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback. He's a good tight end. He's really utilized in this Colts offense, and they no longer have Dante Moncrief. So that means Jack Doyle is probably the number 2 target in this offense. At number 13, George Kittle of the 49ers. Just a guy that could really be a breakout at this position. A lot of fantasy experts really love George Kittle because of the offense he's in San Francisco, because of his quarterback, Jimmy G. George Kittle is a very athletic player. I just don't know if that offense is going to be the best for the tight end position, and if with Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin and Kyle Juszczyk playing a similar role to Kittle and McKinnon and Pettis, there's a lot of other players to take away targets. Shanahan doesn't really force feed anybody in his offense, but Kittle will definitely have some games where he does go off, and he'll definitely at least be a good streamer, if not a pretty good starter occasionally for you in fantasy, because he's going to put up some big weeks that really help you out. Round 10 plus, just a bunch of other guys that I'd consider drafting. Charles Clay was the number one target for the Bills really in the last half of the season last year. I know that was with Tyrod Taylor, but if it's Josh Allen or A.J. McCarron this year, I mean, Kelvin Benjamin is very inconsistent. Charles Clay could be that red zone guy once again this year, and he's just a guy that is lined up to be at least the number 2 target in Buffalo. Then at 16, Jared Cook, a very consistent PPR player. If you want a guy that's just going to get like 5-6 catches a game where he gets like 60 yards, Jared Cook can usually do that for you. He did that last year and finished 13th at the tight end position. Ben Watson. Ben Watson was injured last year, but the last 2 years he's been healthy. 11th and 7th finishes at tight end. Yeah, he's pretty old, but he's on the Saints where he succeeded before. Drew Brees really likes him. Sean Payton likes him. I expect him to start at tight end, and I think he could have some games where he scores a couple touchdowns. At number 18, David Njoku. This is kind of a flyer pick, but if he's as good as I think he was coming out of the draft, and he's athletic as he was coming out of the draft, he screams to me like a Delaney Walker. He does remind me a lot of that. He has a very good burst with the football. He's very hard to take down in open field. And I feel like if they get him the ball and they design some plays for him, I feel like he could be a very dangerous player in this offense. Plus, you never really know. Tyrod Taylor really likes tight ends, like we saw with Charles Clay. At number 19, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He was 24th in 13 games last year. He had some very streamable games. I think he's still a talented tight end, and you never know in Jacksonville. He might end up being the number 1 target because you don't really have one in that offense. At number 20, Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. I side with Brate. He was 9th last year and 7th the year before. I think he could have another decent season. I'm not going to be drafting him, though. I'm just putting him here for you guys because I'm not a fan of the Bucs offense in general. I'm not really drafting any Bucs players, including Mike Evans. So putting that out there, Cam Brate is very consistent, going very late in drafts if you need a backup or a guy that maybe is a borderline starter for you. O.J. Howard, if you like him more, maybe take a chance as a flyer similarly to David Njoku. And then Ricky Seals-Jones is another flyer for you at the end of drafts, but he could end up being the number 2 target in Arizona with Fitz and David Johnson there. You have those two guys. And then at the receiver and tight end positions, Gresham is not a good receiving tight end anymore. And then you just look J.J. Nelson, Chad Williams. Who is going to be that guy to step up? Christian Kirk? I mean, who's going to be the guy to step up for the Arizona Cardinals? Is it going to be Ricky Seals-Jones? He showed some promise last year. That is the tight end rankings for the 2018 season. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button. Subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more fantasy football and NFL videos. Links in the description if you want the rankings. I update them all the time. I just updated my running back and wide receiver rankings yesterday. So check it out in the description. Peace out, guys.